It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker, also with us today via link from Brussels, Mr. Fausto Parente. He is the Executive Director of Iopa, the European Insurance and Occupational Pensions Authority. In your role, Fausto, you preside over the day-to-day management of Iopa, and you have a background in supervisory regulations and policies at both national and international level. And I know that in the end of last year, you published a digital transformation strategy. So it will be most interesting to hear about Iopa's ambitions in this strategy and the role of Iopa as we proceed with the digital transformation of the European insurance sector. So please, Fausto, you have the full attention of the Stockholm audience.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I hope you can hear me well. Thanks a lot for this kind invitation. Good morning to everybody. Thanks for inviting me to this important conference with an important theme, insurance and digital inclusion. Particularly relevant in this period, as we all know, even today when travel restriction of the pandemic have already eased, we continue to have some of the good habits we took during the the peak of the COVID crisis, like, for example, participating in this conference only on a virtual basis, or maybe other good habits like shopping online or something like this. So the digital transformation, as we know, is here and is here to stay. It will continue and is something that we can't avoid, and we need to embrace for the benefit of all of us. It's the same for everybody, for a supervisor, for EIOPA as well, and we all need to struggle with the new challenges brought forward by this transformation. We need to approach it with an open mind, because actually this can really offer many benefits, even though there are some risks, as we know, but this can offer many benefits. And if we manage properly the risk embedded, as always, in every new things, we can really benefit, we as a citizen and the entire society. Today, I'm going to mention three facts, 3 acts, and 3 observations, maybe, just together to give you an idea about how EIOPA see the digital transformation. If we can go to the slide number 2, to the next slide. Let's start with the fact number 1, and it's quite known. Data is at the heart of the insurance industry. It always has been like this, and it always will be like this. This is a fact that we need to use data. We use data since ever. No surprise here. So basically, it's the insurance business which is really embedded in the use of data. The more data is available, the more precise insurance company can be with their offer, services, product, policies for their policyholder. Slide 3, fact number 2. The amount of data, in the next slide, the amount of data that we have at hand is growing, and is growing really significantly. European Commission has estimated that the volume of data produced in the world will go from 33 zettabytes in 2018 to 175 in 2025. So in only 7 years, this is an increase of 5 times increase in only 7 years. And just to give an idea, a zettabyte is one number, 1 with 21 zero after it. So it's quite a huge and a lot of data that we are talking about. And not only the data is growing, but also the capacity for us to use the data is growing. The capacity to combine data sources, to slice and dice in many different ways the data that we need and we want to use. Fact number 3 in the next slide. How we use the data is changing. you know, the traditional data sources like the demographic data are always now increasingly combined with the new sources, such as the telematic data on the behavior or lifestyle of citizen or person. For example, the car insurance, we used to have policies largely determined, prices of product largely determined by the demographic, the geography, the claims history. Now the insurance company can offer customer all kind of benefit like discount on their driving habits or the distance that they drive and so on. So data powers the technology that is being used to transform business model, and this will will influence the entire value chain of the insurance business. New data-driven technology also means new product, new offer, new kind of business model. Peer-to-peer insurance, for example, is one phenomenon that we can see. New technology are already enhancing the efficiency, for example, in the back office of many insurance. One example is the blockchain technology, which is behind some smart contract. So in the future, we can imagine a customer of a travel product, a travel insurance product that can, in a few minutes, get reimbursed for its flight being canceled without any need to call anyone, call center, or any claims form, nothing, just immediately done. These are values. We explored a bit the use of blockchain this month, and we see that the insurance see a lot of potential, also in the way in which this can alleviate the supervisory burden, if I can say so, because there is also a possibility to use it for supervisory purposes. But this is the third fact that I wanted to mention. So data are growing, and data use is changing and improving a lot our capacity. Now, all this brings to the question on how to harness benefit and manage risk, as I said at the beginning, you know, because as always, there are risks and opportunities. If we want to benefit from the new possibility, but we want to avoid, of course, being supervisory, so particularly care of ourselves to avoid risk and manage risk, let's say. Avoid maybe sometimes is impossible. And this is part of our work. At Iopa, we try to always have a regulatory framework and a supervisory framework which is fit for purpose when it comes to digitalization. And in the next slide, I want to start mentioning 3 acts that may come to help here, because the regulation is the part of the answer on how to manage risk without keeping the benefit of the innovation. The first act I want to mention is the Artificial Intelligence Act. When it comes to artificial intelligence, we already have a lot in place. Insurance business is a regulated business. So the current framework already embed some safeguard on the use of artificial intelligence. There is also the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation, that covers many other sectors, not only insurance, and this already provides, in our view, good basis to use artificial intelligence. Now we welcome, of course, the European Commission proposal. The only point of attention here is really to take a proportionate approach when it's needed, because not all use cases are similar, and also be mindful that in the regulation, in the insurance sector, the regulation is already in place in many areas and should specifically then take account of this fact when it comes to cover insurance business. The second act I want to mention, next slide please, is the PEP, another piece of regulation. Now, why mentioning the PEP? Because we know that in many instances, insurance products are sold with a lot of paper. Look at the slide, how many piles of paper we can have. Now, I'm not saying that, of course, all the insurance products trigger so many papers, but it's a fact that some of them that do it. The reason why I want to mention the PEP is because this is a piece of regulation which is already digital proof, let's say. It was designed for a digital world. So the pieces of the pre-contractual information, for example, the benefit statement that we designed for the PEP are digital first. This is not the case in other areas, for example, on the PRIPS regulation, the IDD regulation, which were born in a time where we still had in mind a sort of paper-based approach. So this is key for us because the more people expect to be able to browse and buy product online, the more we should be able to provide them with the relevant information in a digital format, concise information, clear, in order for them to make the right choices. And of course, this is simple to say, provide simple information and clear and concise. It's simple to say, but it's not so simple to put in practice, I can tell you, and we need to all recognize that it's an effort that needs to be constantly done, and to be achieved is not so easy. In the case of the PEP, we believe that we achieved a good step. Let's take this as an example for other pieces of regulation and see continuously how to further improve it. The third, next slide, the third act I want to mention is the DORA. Now, this is mentioned also because, as I said since the start, we need to be attentive to the risk associated with the digitalization, and particularly risky are the cyber attack, especially now in this period, particularly delicate and challenging. So cyber attack is an issue. How we always have been underlining to the insurance industry the importance of cybersecurity and ICT resilience. Those are critical factors because we cannot lose confidence of citizens for some maybe misuse of or maybe some risks that are not properly managed. The DORA Act, the DORA, the Digital Operational Resilience Act, comes to underline this and to reinforce the framework in this regard. And we stand ready to, of course, yesterday it seems that it was agreed, so we stand ready to implement it when it comes to, will become a reality and will come into force. These are the three acts I wanted to mention as regulatory framework, but we all know that regulation is not enough. Regulation needs to go hand in hand with good supervision. And this brings me to the three observations on the supervision, how we supervisor can help in this regard. In the next slide, I just want to repeat something which seems obvious. Consumer protection is key, but it's really at the heart of our work at EIOPA in the supervisory community in general. The key observation here is that innovation cannot be at the cost of good outcome for consumers. This has to be clear to all of us. And here, the theme of your conference on inclusion is quite relevant. In the slide, we put some example of possible risk. Elderly person relying on cash, using cash. It's true that some part of our population has difficulty in navigating in the new world with financial services online. It's also true that many people do not have so much desire to share a huge amount of private data about themselves. And this can lead to exclusion, can lead to bias in the algorithm against them, can lead to risk of exclusion for our society. We need to make sure that all that is considered. We need to make sure that the data are kept securely by the provider, the insurance sector in this case. We need to make sure that cyber attacks are managed to the best possibility we have at hand. We need to make sure that people data are used fairly, that the algorithm do not have biases. Transparency and explainability of the use of data is quite important here, is key. We worked last year with some expert of the sector, a consultative panel that produced a report where we underline what it was underlined by everybody, that the use of data from an ethical perspective is quite important. Explainability, transparency is quite important for the possibility to continue to develop in this sense. We published the key governance pillar for an ethical use of data. We want to follow up on this to understand the development. We also have issued, together with our sister authority, EBA and ESMA, the banking and market regulator, a warning on the use of crypto assets, because we saw a sort of unconscious use of it, and we wanted to underline to all citizens that those things, these really do deserve some attention, because it's not so easy, let's say, to manage something like that. So all in all, we need to make sure that the consumer, they fully understand that they are sharing data. They fully understand what are the data they are sharing and how those data will be used. This is for us key, and this is why we want to mention key protection, consumer protection as the key element here, because innovation, as I said, should go hand in hand with the consumer outcome and enhancing the consumer experience with the sector. In the next slide, I want to mention the second observation, which is more the way in which supervisor needs to look at it. We should be technology neutral, basically. So the principle, same activity, same risk, same rule should apply. But we also, in order for us to be able to do it, we also need to enhance our own skill as a supervisor. This means that we need to have a more agile and efficient supervision, meaning that we need to follow the development of the market. We need to understand the technology itself, how this develop and how this can impact on the market. And then how we ourselves can use it with some specific product. This goes under our name is SupTech. So how we really can benefit from the technology in our own work as supervisor. And in order to do that, as I said, we need to enhance our skill. We need to be aware of the technology development in the market. We need to have an open dialogue with the provider, with the stakeholder, all the parties. One example I like to quote is the European Forum for Innovation Facilitator. This is helping us in keeping pace with the development, and I think that it's also helping the new startup or the new innovator facilitator to understand our point of view. So open dialogue needs to continue and will continue. I also want to quote another example, which I think is quite important, of the effort that we are putting together with the sister authorities, the EBA and ESMA, but also with the European Commission. And this is the Supervisory Digital Finance Academy. It's a sort of big project training to train our staff, the staff of all the European supervisory authorities, in order to address the mismatch between skills and the current skill and the skill needed for supervising the new phenomenon. In the next slide, I want to have the third and final observation, which is more focused on EIOPA. As you mentioned at the beginning, we also have defined a digital transformation strategy. This is a piece of work we did actually in view of contributing to a sound transformation of the insurance and the pension sector in Europe, managing the related risk. We identified 5 areas of work, 5 long-term priorities that we are we are trying to focus on. The development of a sound European data ecosystem is the first element. The support to artificial intelligence while ensuring financial inclusion. The third point we want to focus on is the financial stability and resilience. This is also comes hand in hand with the DORA implementation. We also want to further benefit citizens for the single market. We should be able to use the single market and really cross the border when it comes to offer and economy of scales. The technology can be an important element of it. And as I said, the enhancing our capacity, the skills of the European supervisory community is also a key element of this digital transformation strategy. So in short, we must understand how technology changes, and we need to adapt to our supervisory practices to these changes to address the new challenges. Just to then at the next slide to conclude my intervention. So just sum up a bit, the transformation, the digital transformation cannot be ignored. As we said, it affects the entire society, all of us, including supervisor. We need to harness the benefit and manage the risk. We need to remember policyholder interest, because this is the way to harness benefit and manage risk. We need to treat policyholder, customer, consumers in general fairly to our best possible. If we do that, this will increase confidence and trust in the sector, in the digital transformation. This will flourish if we manage to gain more and more confidence and trust. And the flourishing sector, helped by the digital transformation, can foster our economy to go for a stronger and stronger economy. And this benefit, in the end, will cover the entire society. So it's quite an important goal we need to have in mind. Is made of small steps, maybe small things, small projects, but the objective is quite an important one. Benefiting the entire society for this digital transformation is at the heart of our work at Iopa and in the supervisory community. I'm sure that also the insurance industry as a whole has a strong interest in it. Thanks a lot. I will stop here my talk and maybe have more time for some question, if any.
Many thanks, Fausto, for that very interesting presentation, explaining the role of Iopa and also your ambition in this area of digital transformation. There are indeed many new acts in the digital field, some sector-specific, some not sector-specific. I'd like to ask you, this morning we also had participation from the European Commission. It was Matthias Levin from the Digital Finance Unit participating, explaining for us their work on coming legislation, namely that on open insurance, open finance. And I know that you published a consultation last year on open insurance. So I know this is a key interest for you as well. Just like to ask you, it would be interesting to hear you reflect on that proposal, which of course we don't actually know the details yet, but we know the ambition of the Commission. What do you expect from such a proposal? How would that really affect the European insurance market? Do you have a view on that?
Yeah, as you said, we published our consultation paper coming from this awareness that this is something that in the finance, especially now in the banking sector, is already there. So we wanted to explore how this sector, our sector, can benefit from opening up the use of data to insurance company, to non-insurance company, to generally speaking, opening up data on the behavior of a client and so on. We published the discussion paper. We received around 60 answers. It should be for today or for tomorrow, in these days anyway, sort of feedback statement for that public consultation. You will see that we have get some, how can I say, very diverse point of view. So our conclusion at the moment is that there is no strong agreement, let's say, on the next step for insurance, for the insurance sector. And this is also the reason why we basically slow down at the time the work on this, also waiting for more input from the Commission, from the other forum, because actually the use of data more open in the sector is not only limited to insurance supervisors, so it's a wider issue that involve other actors. So my answer to your question is actually that there is no strong, clear agreement and case on how this can really go ahead at the moment. For sure, we want to continue to monitor, and we will look forward to this public consultation of the Commission. In the insurance sector, there can be benefit, in our view, for sure, if the risks are handled properly. The clear case now on the next step for EIOPA is not yet defined. We are still working on the outcome of this public consultation, on this discussion paper, and also we will see the impact of the new pieces of regulation like the EPIF, the Artificial Intelligence Act that I also quoted in my presentation. We are still, how can I say, in a sort of diagnostic phase where before making steps that cannot prove then not the proper one, we want to reflect further. In this sense, I can only encourage the Swedish industry, which, by the way, is one of the best places in Europe according to our overview of European market when it comes to digitalization, to provide comment, input. We will look at the public consultation and see what next.
Yes, thank you very much. We will indeed participate in this consultation as well. Perhaps I can just address one thing you mentioned, which is part of your digital transformation strategy as well. You mentioned that one ambition here in your strategy is to ensure the use of trustworthy AI systems while ensuring financial inclusion. And actually in this conference we have specifically addressed the issue of digital inclusion, meaning that all insurance customers should benefit from digital innovation. So with this ambition of yours, how do you think we reach those high standards, high goals in this regard, and what is your role in that aspect?
Our role, I think, is to keep the regulatory framework and our approach fit for purpose. And this means the continuous maintenance of the regulatory framework to cope with the market and, in this case, technological development. As I said, we acknowledge that there are many benefits we can harness from digital transformation. The issue is how to mitigate, I don't want to say avoid, because risk cannot always be fully avoided, but how we can mitigate risk. I provided a couple of examples, but for sure there are issues of exclusion that we need to cope with. Certain category of consumer not willing to share data may encounter difficulty, or maybe groups that are potentially more vulnerable cannot be excluded. How we cope with it and what is our role is to really monitor the market and see if there are adjustments to the rule that needs to be put in place. Transparency and explainability of algorithm is key. Governance of data is key as well. These are the things where we can focus on, because we really want to facilitate innovation. It's not, we supervisors tend to be seen as those who put some burden on the free development of market. I do believe that our effort is here really to help innovation but try to understand when is the right moment to insert some provision or some rule for an ethical use of data. This is the reason why we launched this consultative group with experts from around Europe. And this is where we want to focus our attention. It's a delicate task that we need to have, with really the sort of small piece of attention to avoid mistake that can deprive the sector from development of the technology.
Okay, many thanks for your reflections on this important issue, and I absolutely agree that rules is one thing, but perhaps it's not enough. We as well need ethical guidance in the use of data as well, going forward, of course. Perhaps we have a question from the audience to end with. Are there anyone who'd like to ask a question to Mr. Fausto Parente? Doesn't seem so. Just a final question then. You mentioned the transition to a more digital insurance service, and your slide there with a whole pile of papers. Due to some regulation that was drawn up while we were still in perhaps a more analog phase of this development, does this go fast enough, the transformation to a more paperless?
No. My answer is very sincere. No, it doesn't. Unfortunately, this is also a bit how the regulation production system works, especially at Europe. You know, you take generally 2-3 years to transform a proposal into a proper piece of directive, regulation, whatever. Then you need to implement it. So we are talking about a time horizon of 5 years, decades for the new world where digital transformation is on a daily basis. I see that this is really one of the things that we could improve. Not easy, as I said, but the fact that we are all aware the speed of supervisory action and regulatory changes are not at the level desired, and at least at the level needed for the market speed is already, if you want, a small step that we are aware of it. So let's try to improve. But my answer is unfortunately no.
Okay, we are trying to jump on a running train, obviously. Thanks a lot, Fausto. It was indeed a pleasure.
Thanks a lot, and I also really want to thank you, and I know that I will ask some Swedish colleague for the outcome of your conference, because it was quite an interesting topic, and of course I can't speak Swedish, otherwise I would have enjoyed listening to all the participants. But thanks a lot, really, and hope you will continue to enjoy the conference.
Many thanks indeed. A big hand.